you know, people complain about young black male unemployment. So then that leads people in to incarcerate them. You end up with black men being warehoused because black people pose the greatest genetic threat.
Hey, what's happening, family? It's your man, Mark Black. You know what time it is. Welcome to Sucka-Free Saturday. I am so glad, as usual, to have you all here with me today. We've got a pretty interesting topic to discuss today. So make sure you have your thinking caps on, get your treats, get your snacks, right? Because we're going in. But before I get into it, I want to say thank you to everybody who got a chance to watch me and Sister Vita on Champagne Sharks broadcast on Thursday. Fam, if you missed it, it was a hell of a treat. We talked about Breonna Taylor. We talked about child rearing amongst our people, just a whole host of topics. And as you guys all know, I love to have an opportunity to be able to support black media in my own way. I support not just financially, but by helping them to provide content and things like that. And also, they're just a great bunch of folk over there at Champagne Shark. So if you haven't got a chance to check that out, check the community page here on my channel for a link to the broadcast. Or you could just simply do what I did already and just go over there and actually join, become a subscriber of Champagne Sharks, because they some solid fam and they get it in, right? So I got two people especially that I want to shout out today. First, I want to shout out my beloved brother Thomas Joseph. As many of you know, Memorial Day about 3 years ago, my brother committed suicide. He was facing his third strike. And he did not want to see the inside of a prison anymore. And so after having a discussion with my mother, he sat down on her couch and put one in his face, right? And I miss him to this day. The 24th, which was 2 days ago, would have been my brother's 45th birthday. Thomas, you live on, fam. You'll never be far away from me. I love you more than you'll ever know. I miss you more than you'll ever know. And ride with me, because we still got so far to go, brother. I love you, man. Second of all, I want to shout out to my esteemed sister Nija. Today is her birthday. I already wished her a happy birthday, but I want to put it into posterity, right? Sister, you are one of the coldest folk that I've never got the chance to meet. I call her my baby sister, fam. She lives back on the east side, right? But she's so dope. She's an amazingly smart, beautiful, kind individual. And from the moment I started kind of following her on social media, we just click. We think a lot alike. And I'm telling you, she's as petty as me, actually pettier, and just a dope sister. And I wanted to make sure to shout her out. happy birthday to you, Sister Nija. May you live 1,000 years. I can't wish nothing but the ultimate best for you and for yours. And so from your brother who loves you, many returns. And I hope you're kicking it like crazy tonight, right? So with that said, let me go and thank you, Sister Kimberly. Appreciate you becoming a support member of the channel. Membership has its privileges, and we'll be talking more about that here in the days and weeks to come. But let me shout out Darker Visions was early in the house. That's how you get it in. Miss Denny is in the house, right? Let's see here. Cool fam, I see you. Welcome to the broadcast. Sister Adrian, yep, you right on time. Welcome to Sucka-Free Saturday. Of course, shout out to Sister Black Magic. Appreciate the support, by the way, sister. Love you. Thank you very much for that. Sister Tiffany is in the house. Sister Kimberly is in the house. Remember, fam, you show up. You don't got to participate in the chat, but pop your name in there. Let us know you're here so we can show you some love and shout you out. All right. So without further ado, let's get into the topic of today. I want to first shout out, Jason Argonate, right? One of my Twitter trolls, right? Me and this brother is rock solid. A lot of people don't know this, but he also designed my logos for the channel. So definitely a supporter of mine. Great brother. Love his ass to death. But he hit me to something that I hadn't touched on. That after reviewing it, fam, thank you. Shit, no shit. Darker, oh my God. Okay, right. Shout out to Darker Visions, okay? But Darker Visions hit me up to something that I hadn't really been up on. And so I wanted to make sure that we go over it in the way that we do as Angry Black Sheep so we know what's cracking, right? By the way, shout out to Adric. Adric, your account got jacked. Man, that's some fucked up shit. Man, well, anyway, I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the broadcast. Recently, as you all know, Donald Trump has been on this spate of executive orders, right, fam? Executive orders trying to get more money into people's pockets for unemployment and also, a bunch of other stuff. So, by the way, shout out to beloved sister Taj. Welcome to Sucka-Free Saturday. But there was one that barely got any mention in the mainstream media. And I think I understand the reason why, especially after reviewing it. But today, fam, we're going to look at it piece by piece. And we're going to look at it and understand truly what this means for us. Because essentially, this executive order is the beginnings of the punishing of thought crime in the United States. Won't be just enough to punish you if you're out there protesting or if you openly hostile against certain policies, programs, procedures in this country. Now, Trump is trying to make it to where you can be punished for what you think. And we need to be up on this shit so that we understand how to address it and how to act accordingly. So let's take a look. Unsunken One, peace to you, fam. Welcome to the broadcast. Let's go to the teaching screen, fam. Sister Alma's in the house, by the way. Mwah, beloved you, Sister Alma. Love you. Happy Sucka-Free Saturday. Welcome to the broadcast. Let's hit up the teaching screen. Fam, this is Executive Order 13950. And as you can see, this was issued just a few days ago. All right. This document or this executive order is published in the Federal Register. This is an actual executive order. All right. Issued by Donald Trump. Now, he goes in at first here and discusses his authority to issue the executive order. Let us read part of Section 1. Because the language that's used in this section really kind of sets up some fuckery, some mental fuckery. Because if you just went off of what you read here in this first section, you would think that this is a great executive order, that Trump is about justice. Don't worry, fam. We'll get to it. I'll start here. Quote, From the Battle of Gettysburg to the bus boycotts in Montgomery and to the Selma to Montgomery marches, heroic Americans have valiantly risked their lives to ensure that their children would grow up in a nation living out its creed expressed in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. It was this belief in the inherent quality of every individual that inspired the founding generation to risk their lives, fortunes, and their sacred honor to establish a new nation, unique among the countries of the world, right? And he goes on, he says, it is the belief that inspired the heroic black soldiers of the Massachusetts 54th Infantry Regiment to defend that same union at great cost in the Civil War. And it is what inspired Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to dream that his children would one day not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, unquote. Pause. So, as you can see here, Trump's laying out the history of America as he understands it, right? He talks about how this is, a group of people that have supported and believed in the words of the Constitution, because notice he mentions the Civil War, the Union in the Civil War, and goes right to talking about the Montgomery bus boycotts. So he's basically saying that black people have held the vision, right? They have risked their lives to ensure that they could live in an America that upholds the standards espoused in the Constitution of the United States, right? We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, right? To establish, the Commonwealth, to provide for, the domestic tranquility and all that other shit, right? And he keeps mentioning some of our heroes and greats. He mentions Lincoln. He mentions Martin Luther King, the 50, Massachusetts 54th, and so on and so forth, right? But fam, you can recognize that this is the buttering up, like 2008 B. Scott said, this is the buttering up before the fuckery, right? Because think about this. Who else does this when they talk about fuckery for black folk? Remember, Trump used to be a Democrat. And the Democrats are notorious for highlighting our struggles, highlighting our valiant efforts, our sacrifices, right before they pull the goddamn rug off from under us and all lives matter, every goddamn thing, right? So read this section, fam. And don't worry, I'm going to actually put a link to the document. You can download it yourself and read it yourself. Understand that this part is the prelude to the fuckery. Because it goes on, and I continue, quote, today, however, many people are pushing a different vision of America that is grounded in hierarchies based on collective social and political identities rather than in the inherent and equal dignity of every person as an individual. This ideology is rooted in the pernicious and false belief that America is an irredeemably racist and sexist country, that some people simply on account of their race or sex are oppressors, and that racial and sexual identities are more important than our common status as human beings and Americans, unquote. So now, fam, you get a glimpse. Now you get to see what the whole prelude was all about. He laid out the history of our struggle in this country as black folk to use as cover. For the fuckery that's coming next, right? Because, it makes sense to deny race if there was no racial wealth gap. If we had received our due in Special Order 15 by Sherman after the Civil War and the whole 9 yards, if we had already been made whole, then yes, anybody sitting here divvying up Americans based off of identity or race or whatever the case may be, you can have a solid goddamn argument against that. But to claim that this division is somehow history in America when it still continues today is absolute and complete fuckery. Trump knows it, we know it, everybody knows it. to sit here in the absence of justice and say that everybody who continues to profit off of the suffering of Native Black Americans, of the descendants of the enslaved in the United States, of ADOS people, and for us to be calling it out as somehow being racist or somehow utilizing race as a weapon against the rest of the country, is fucking bullshit. Emmanuel said, I believe the conservatives are playing the pro-life voters. They'll never overturn Roe v. Wade. I don't think it can be overturned, to be quite honest, but I don't care. Roe v. Wade to me doesn't mean shit. I got bigger fish to fry. Right? But you can already see, fam, where this is going. It's trying to say that anybody who advocates for a particular identity, especially black people, because remember, part of our justice claim indicts America as a whole as being supporters de facto and de jure of the systems, institutions, methodologies, policies, procedures, curricula, etc. that work to keep us at the bottom as a bottom caste. But what Trump is basically trying to say is that we're the ahistorical ones. If you look at the history of America, we have fought in order to make this country great, and it's now great. But you have this cabal of individuals who want to put up hierarchies or identities ahead of being an American. Bullshit. I want to be an American, but I want justice for my people. You don't get to tell me that I can't advocate for justice for my people because that makes you unfucking comfortable. By the way, shout out to Brother Barrington. Shout out to Queen Jet Black. Shout out to Emmanuel Spataro. Shout out to Since I'm Here. And shout out to Ebony Roses. Yes, Unsunken One, you got it. This is an executive gag order, and you'll see as we get further into it. He says here, and I quote, "This destructive ideology is grounded in misrepresentations of our country's history and its role in the world. Although presented as new and revolutionary, they resurrect the discredited notions of the 19th century apologists for slavery who, like President Lincoln's rival Stephen A. Douglas, maintained that our government was made on the white basis by white men for the benefit of white men." Pause. How the fuck is that discredited? Explain to me how in the 100+ years since the Civil War that Stephen A. Douglas, his statement that America is made on the white basis for white men and by white men for the benefit of white men, how has that been discredited? How? That shit is as still as true today as it was when he said the shit way back when, right? Like, this is crazy talk. He said, our founding documents rejected these racialized views of America, which were soundly defeated on the blood-stained battlefields of the Civil War. Pause. No, the founding documents didn't. The Constitution at the time made us 3/5 of a citizen for the purpose of census. In other words, we were property, but since we were kind of like intelligent property, right, in order to increase the power of the plantation class, the money class, they were allowed to count us as 3/5 of one human being for the purposes of census, right? The census controls federal resources. It controls the allotment of representatives to the Congress and a whole bunch of other shit. That's in the Constitution. How is that deracializing the Constitution? How did the founding documents simply just glance over the peculiar institution of slavery? This is the most ahistorical, propagandized drivel I have ever seen in my fucking life. Trump is essentially trying to say that this ideology which he acknowledges as destructive, has somehow or another been discredited, that America's all better now. And it's not about white and black or, no. It's just about, profit and loss. It's about, rich and poor or whatever. Stephen A. Douglas's statement has never been discredited. It is still the reality in the United States that if you are a white male, this government maintains specific benefits for you. It maintains specific places for you. Sure, they don't have to write that shit in law anymore because they don't need to. It's self-reinforcing. It's reinforced through nepotism in the workplace and on jobs. It's reinforced in customs. It's reinforced in unequal application of regulations. It's reinforced by the unequal application and the disproportionate application of justice in the criminal justice system. They don't need to enshrine that shit in law anymore because it's self-reinforcing. And at this fucking point, they can sit here and point at the law and say, well, see, the law says, so you niggas are crazy. We can't discriminate against you, the law says. So fucking what? Like the law has ever stopped the discrimination, the degradation, the denigration of our people. This executive order is trying to sit here and claim that we're all good now. We're all equal. In the absence of any fucking evidence. As a matter of fact, with all the evidence to the contrary. I'm going to let that read out, Taj, because that's a hell of a point right there. This is complete ahistorical drivel.
They are still doing that today when counting people in prison as part of the census population for towns while denying inmates voting rights.
Facts. Absolutely facts. They'll count our people locked up in some little podunk bullshitty ass town in a federal prison in Iowa. They'll count them for the people of Iowa. So then why are we surprised when Iowa, this little podunk ass state, has more representatives in there representing their little white bastion of white supremacy there than say Atlanta in Georgia does? They taking and transplanting our people from Georgia, B-More, D.C., K.C., St. Louis, Denver, locking them up and then counting them as living there in that jurisdiction. But meanwhile, they're disenfranchised. They can't vote because they're felons. But they give disproportionate political weight to the people that actually do live there, who usually 9 times out of 10 are voting on matters and everything antithetical to the interests of the prisoners that live in their jurisdiction. Make that shit make sense. This whole goddamn thing, this whole executive order is nothing but ahistorical gaslighting, disguised as an ode, a paean to justice. Ain't that a bitch? Listen to this. Quote, unfortunately, this malign ideology is now migrating from the fringes of American society and threatens to infect core institutions in our country. Instructors and materials teaching that men and members of certain races, as well as our most venerable institutions, are inherently sexist and racist, are appearing in workplace diversity trainings across the country, even in components of the federal government and among federal contractors. For example, the Department of Treasury recently held a seminar that promoted arguments that virtually all white people, regardless of how woke they are, contribute to racism, and that instructed small group leaders to encourage employees to avoid narratives that Americans should be more colorblind or let people's skills and personalities be what differentiates them, unquote. And he goes on to list different training materials for different federal institutions, federal organizations. Shout out to Back to the Basics, by the way. Welcome to the broadcast, fam. Welcome, Engaging Black. I see you. So this idea then that America as a whole supports racist ideology, racist doctrines, racist dogma, fam, this is some bullshit. This is a malign ideology. It's who's it malign to? Because if these people are teaching something that is true, then the only way this teaching, this education might be malign is to those who hold beliefs that are racist in nature. Colorblind. So to argue anything other than the fact that America doesn't see color is a malign ideology. It's harmful to the country, according to President Donald J. Trump. Fam, I wish I was making this shit up. I really do. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. We're reading it here in black and white. Since I'm here, said colorblind means ignore us. Absolutely. Colorblind means that, hey, forget about all the historical injustices and the shit that's happened to black people at the hands of white Americans since ad nauseum, right? Forget about it. We're all just one big mass of Americans. As if that's going to actually change people's behaviors, minds, thought processes, biases, etc., so on and so forth. Well, Trump said we all Americans now, niggers. Can you imagine somebody white saying that shit? Can you imagine that? What are you mad at me for, nigger man? Our president said we're all Americans. I'm not dismissing this, Unsunken One. I am not dismissing this. Because this right here, as I titled today's broadcast, is the beginning of what will ultimately constitute, if we're not careful, the onset of the punishment of thought crime. The criminalization of ideology. You've already seen Trump taking a stab at this type of shit. We'll talk about it some more, right? But let us go on right here, because this part's important. And I'm going to pop a link into the chat for this document as well, so you can read it and continue on yourself. It's about 7 pages long, but I want us to take a look at this really quickly before we continue on. Quote, our federal service system is based on merit principles. These principles codified in Title 5 United States Code section 2301 calls for all employees to receive fair and equitable treatment in all aspects of personnel management without regard to race or sex and with proper regard for their constitutional rights. I wonder if we need to go and read that section of the code, because those ellipses there, those 3 dots, means they left something out in the quote. I wonder if maybe we should go take a look at that. Matter of fact, let's do it. Don't fuck with the angry black sheep, because you'll get the horns. We don't play around. Here we go. Merit system principles. Oh, so here's what he left out. He left out a whole host of shit. Religion, national origin, sex, marital status, handicap or age, and with proper regard for their privacy. So here he's attempting to quote the United States Code and leaves out a whole host of other shit that's supposed to be considered when you are an employee of the federal government, including your right to privacy. So according to Trump's executive order, yeah, if it's about race and sex, we can watch out for that. But you don't have a right to your opinions. Now, that was important. That was important. That eliding between quoting about race and sex and all that shit, that was important. And then to go to the part where he's talking about constitutional rights. That is important. Because in order to punish you for thought crime, they have to have the capability, fam, of being able to know what you're thinking. Which means they're going to be surveilling you, observing you, looking at your social media and all of that. Because you don't have a right to privacy under a regime that punishes thought crime. Any statement you make, any idea you might hold, any malign ideology means that you're now subject to sanction. Fam, again, let me pop the link to this in the chat. Let me do that now for you. Please go and do your homework. We Angry Black Sheep, we don't take nobody's word for shit. Read this yourself. But it goes on to say, here's the definitions. Fam, this shit is hilarious. Subsection A in Section 2 defines divisive concepts as the concepts that one race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex. Number 2, the United States is fundamentally racist or sexist. Number 3, an individual by virtue of his or her race or sex is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. They're defining your own biases. If we say, hey, you may be biased toward looking at black people in a negative light, which science shows that many Americans actually have an inherent bias against blackness in this country, including black people, some black people. To actually state that out loud is a divisive concept. It says race and sex stereotyping means ascribing character traits, values, moral, ethical codes, privileges, statuses, or beliefs to a race or sex, or to an individual because of his race or sex. Race or sex scapegoating means assigning fault, blame, or bias. Fam, this shit is ridiculous. And then it goes into the requirements. It says here that the United States Armed Forces, right, have a duty, a responsibility to not adhere to any of these concepts. And if they are in some way penalized because they don't cleave to these ideas, that's not acceptable. It says here, no member of the United States Uniformed Services shall face any penalty or discrimination on account of his or her refusal to support, believe, endorse, embrace, confess, act upon, or otherwise assent to these divisive concepts as defined here in Section 2, subsection A. So the military, you could be in the military and they could talk about the history of America. And you could be like, I don't support this bullshit, sir. I'm not taking this training. I'm out. And if they sanction you, if you get an Article 15, if they write you up, or if they court-martial you, according to this executive order, the military can no longer do that. They cannot punish you if you refuse to accept, adhere to, assent to any of these trainings, right? It talks about government contractors. So if you work for a company that's a contractor with the government, right, getting its funding from the government, at this point, after this executive order, they can sit there and not have to have any trainings or anything regarding, any type of disability or diversity or anything like that. It goes on and on. It says if they non-comply, right? Here's where the sanction starts to come in. Let's look at section 4, subsection 3. In the event of the contractor's non-compliance with the requirements of paragraphs 1, 2, and 4, or with any rules, regulations, or orders that might be promulgated in accordance with this executive order of September 22nd, 2020, their contract may be canceled, terminated, or suspended in whole or in part, and the contractor may be declared ineligible for further government contracts in accordance with procedures authorized in Executive Order 11246, and other such sanctions may be imposed and remedies invoked as provided by any rules, regulations, or orders the Secretary of Labor has issued or adopted pursuant to Executive Order 11246, including subpart D of that order. Now, I know that sounds like a bunch of legalese, but what that's essentially saying, fam, is that if you're a contractor and you teach a class about the history of America and one white motherfucker gets up and objects and says, this is a divisive concept, you could lose your entire contract. And on top of it, you could be refused. In other words, they could refuse you from ever contracting with the government again based off of this executive order. Thought crime. Family, thought crime. It talks about requirements for federal grants. The heads of all agencies shall review their respective grant programs and identify programs for which the agency may, as a condition of receiving such a grant, require the recipient to certify that it will not use federal funds to promote the concepts that A, one race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex, B, an individual by virtue of his race or sex is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, C, an individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment solely partly because of his or her race or sex, so on and so forth. In other words, fam, even grant money, government grants are now subject to this executive order. 2008 B. Scott, fam, this isn't law, or I should say this isn't legislative law. This is executive order. This is dictate. Basically, the whole thing of it is that by dictate, Trump is saying that any federal agency that he has the auspices over, people can fucking walk around and just say, fuck that shit. And have people's livelihoods destroyed, contracts canceled, sanctioned, now and forever. It's thought crime. If you ever say that there's a such thing as white supremacy, you're subject to sanction. And yes, since this is an executive order, the only way this can be overturned is by another executive order. Now, one thing to note, Black Magic, there are hundreds of thousands, well, not hundreds of thousands, but there's thousands and thousands of executive orders on the books. A president can either utilize them or not utilize them at their discretion because they're executive orders. That said, they all remain on the Federal Register. They all remain as a part of the executive law. Basically, this is the executive making law without going through the legislature. And until it's either overwritten by another executive order, the only thing that another executive or another president can do is simply disregard it. But it's still there to be utilized by any president that comes forward. So you think that you can trust Jim Crow Joe Biden to have the power to be able to sanction and eliminate the contracts of black contractors with the federal government because they teach? Yes, Black Magic, it stays on the books. And yes, Sister Taj, this is going to make it even harder for people, especially if you operate under any federal grants, contracts, or what have you, to sue for discrimination. Because in order to claim discrimination, you'd have to establish by some historical fashion that there's some sort of method or means by which you're being discriminated against. But since we're all colorblind, how hard is it, or how easy that's going to be to do that? By the way, I want to thank Brother Charles. Thank you for the love, fam. I appreciate you. This shit, fam, is fucking ridiculous. So basically, Trump is saying if you adhere to any idea, any teaching, anything that says that there was once upon a time any negative history to black people, that every American through inaction is complicit, you're now violating an executive order. You're now violating, to a degree, the law, and are subject to sanction. Fam, that's the very definition of thought crime. But we saw this coming, did we not? Did we not, fam? When he started talking about Antifa as a terrorist organization, Antifa stands for anti-fascist. That's literally what Antifa stands for, right? We saw this coming when the FBI tried to create the designation for BIEs, Black Identity Extremists. We saw this coming, fam. We understood that eventually certain ideas, certain ideologies were going to be criminalized in their attempt to squelch the voices of the people that espouse those understandings, that teach that information, that cleave to those ideologies. It's thought crime. And if you think that it won't happen in America where you hold a certain idea or a certain belief, that they won't come for you, you are sadly mistaken. How many of y'all remember the Move family in Philadelphia? How many of y'all, Papa one in the chat, if you're familiar with the Move family? Used to be based out of Philly. Peace, Sister Rhonda. I see you, fam. Welcome to the broadcast. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Move organization, the Move family, they were led by a brother named John Africa. And they were a peaceful folk. They believed in natural living. They believed in raw foods and veganism and not hurting the earth. But most importantly, they believed that black people got a fucked up shake. And that we just need to just do for our own self. Just bounce out and live in peace. Away from the buckra. Well, in 1975, the city of Philadelphia, after barraging their home with a barrage of bullets, dropped an incendiary device on top of their home and burnt them the fuck out. Only 2 people survived the attack on the Move family home. That was 1975, fam. That wasn't ancient fucking history. Yes, they blew these people the fuck up. They set their home on fire, and then anyone that tried to escape the fire was immediately gunned down by Philly PD. The moment you stuck your head out of a burning building, they shot you. I'm sorry, 1985. No, actually, I thought it was 75. Am I off by a decade? Let me check. Because y'all might be right. You know I'm getting old. Yeah, it was 85. All apologies, family. Thank you for the correction. 1985. Shit, that's even worse. that was 1985. Hell, in 1985, I was a motherfucking teenager. I was 12 years old. That shit isn't ancient history. That happened today. But Trump and Alia has the nerve to tell us that this country is colorblind, that we're just as free as every other American, that America isn't fucking racist. The goddamn mayor of Philadelphia got on TV and was quoted as saying a bunch of racist shit before they bombed those people out. The police chief was talking about niggers this and niggers that. So if we teach that due to the internalized biases and systematic racism of this country, incidents like what happened to the Move family in 1985 in Philadelphia can still occur today, we're committing thought crime, according to Donald J. Trump. You know what's really fucked up? Let's go back a bit, shall we? Because I remember I told you guys to put a pin in this part right here. Our federal service system is based on merit principles, meaning that the federal government ostensibly isn't supposed to care about your race, color, creed, religion, sexual preference, orientation, age, what have you. It only goes by whether or not you're capable of doing the work or not. That's what merit principles means. That's what a meritocracy is. The rule of the people who have the skills to pay the bills. But family, we know that's fucking bullshit. Because shortly after the Supreme Court ruled for separate but equal under Plessy v. Ferguson, Woodrow Wilson completely segregated the federal workforce. Oh, did we forget about that? Did we forget about the fact that during Reconstruction, black people were able to elect senators to the Senate? We had postmasters general. We had all sorts of shit where we got involved with the government. The moment our people got free, we got involved in politics. And through that, we were starting to see appointments and elections where we were able to get our people into high places. But here come Woodrow Wilson punk ass. And Woodrow Wilson took the military and separated the military. Look at this shit. Washington was a rigidly segregated town except for federal government agencies. They had been integrated during the post-war Reconstruction period, enabling African Americans to obtain federal jobs and work side by side with whites in government agencies. Wilson promptly authorized members of his cabinet to reverse this long-standing policy of racial integration in the federal civil service. Woodrow Wilson is an ancient history. And for a long motherfucking time, the federal organizations were rigidly segregated. Matter of fact, our brothers and sisters that had a chance to serve in World War I lived in completely separate barracks and camps from white soldiers. They went to go fight over in Europe against the Krauts, just like everybody else, and came back here and were killed with their motherfucking uniforms on. And that was initiated, made law by a president of the United States. But to say that to a group of federal employees today, according to Donald Trump's executive order, makes you committing thought crime. You're promoting a divisive concept. When our United States government had already made and instituted policies and procedures that segregated the goddamn federal government. Check this out. Segregation was quickly implemented at the post office department headquarters in D.C. Many African employees were downgraded and even fired. Employees who were downgraded were transferred to the dead letter office where they did not interact with the public. The few African Americans who remained at the main post offices were put to work behind screens out of customer sight. Both the post office and the Treasury Department also created separate bathrooms and lunchrooms for African American and white employees. It's absolute fucking bullshit, fam. He's trying to say that somehow or another America has lived up to this colorblind creed where we only see what you're capable of. When we had an entire administration institute segregation on a federal level. And the presidents that came after it continued it all the way up into the 60s. Segregated post office, segregated Treasury building, segregated Congress. After Reconstruction and Plessy v. Ferguson, fam, we didn't get another black senator in the office for over 100 years. But now all of a sudden, everything is cool. Everything is fixed. Everything's all gravy. So you stop teaching this bullshit ideology of the history of the United States. It's divisive. Well, y'all got quiet in the chat, fam. I'm a little nervous right now. What's going on? You know what I'm saying? I ain't seeing nobody type shit. Y'all better be researching. But yeah, fam, this is thought crime. To hold an ideology or an idea that America is not this exceptional, shining bastion of love, peace, and freedom sitting on top of a hill of a city of 1,000 lights is divisive concepts. It's thought crime. Fam, I don't know what else to say on this shit. To be quite honest, we need to be in a whole bunch of people's ass. If America was a sane, reasonable place, this shit would be plastered all over the news. As Donald Trump's administration attempting to initiate thought crime in the United States of America. Yet you don't hear shit about it. You won't hear shit about it on MSNBC. You won't hear shit about it on CNN. You won't hear shit about it in the motherfucking Huffington Post or any of the other bullshit ass media that y'all read. I don't know, since I'm here, why it's not been all over the news. Because this shit right here, fam, is alarming. It really is. Fam, for those of you who are not necessarily familiar with the history of various dictatorships around the world, one of the things that every dictatorship does is it makes certain ideas, certain statements, certain ideologies illegal. It makes them anathema. First, you just get shamed for thinking that way. But it's not that far a step from shaming you to stealing and seizing your shit, to locking you the fuck up, to disappearing you. This is the initiation of an attempt to make thought crime a reality in the United States of America. And ain't nobody fucking talking about it. That's right, Sister Taj. This is on some China, Korea type shit. If you don't just sit there and sing paeans to the great, dear great leader. Yep. Thought crime. Some wild shit. And like I said, nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about the fact that you are now subject to having your property seized, having your contracts canceled, being blacklisted so that you can no longer contract or work with the federal government simply because of the ideas that you hold in your head. And more importantly, you don't have any right to try to convince people of those ideas either. Because this isn't just censorship. This is willful blindness. You not only aren't supposed to have these ideas in your head, but you're not allowed to promulgate them. You're not allowed to try to talk to people and get them to agree with where you at. Fam, before I open up the phone lines, because I really don't have much to say on this, I want to hear from y'all. My last broadcast, there was quite a few people who were talking about we need to hook up a Discord. Well, I'm here to tell you, I've long had one. Click that link to join my Discord. If you are a supporting member of the channel, I'll know it, and I'll go ahead and add you with member privileges on the Discord server. There you can have voice talks. You can jump into one of the meeting rooms and talk to each other or to me. You'll be able to chat. You'll be able to post information, pictures, the whole 9 yards. That Discord has been there. It's just nobody's been interested in it. I usually just retweet my tweets. So you'll see a bunch of tweets on my Discord. But yeah, that's for you. You can have video conferencing using Discord. So you guys can link up, start talking back and forth to each other. I wanted to have a place for the angry black sheep to be able to come and gather together as a herd. I wanted us to have that available every day, so that we can be able to share information back and forth, discuss things we don't want to be discussing here on the broadcast, and so on and so forth. So click that link, fam, and that'll get you set up with Discord. Make sure you use the same Discord name as you use on YouTube, so I know who you are, whatever the case may be. Or when you pop in there, just let me know who you are, and I'll make sure to go ahead and hit you up, because I recognize most of you via your YouTube handles, right? Certain of you I also follow on Twitter and recognize you via Twitter. So, fam, 425-296-1980 is the number. She hasn't been out. You can take her. Yep. I want to hear from y'all, fam. What do you think about the fact that Donald Trump and company are trying to take the idea that your history is now criminal? It's a divisive idea, a divisive concept that if taught on the federal level, or whatever the case may be, will do nothing but simply get people fucked up. It's anti-American. (425-296-1980), fam, is the number. I see y'all already starting to pop in. Okay, cool. Let me go ahead and take care of some people here in the Discord here. There you go. Back to the basics in the house, right? But fam, we need to talk about this shit, right? We need to understand just what this means for us, because what this essentially means is that Trump is trying to criminalize the idea of you going after your justice claim, because you need to be able to expound on key concepts such as the complicity of Americans in general to keeping you and yours in the status in which you are. But if that's considered divisive concepts, people could just get up and walk the fuck out, and you can't do shit about it. Can't address it. Can't force them to hear an idea that make them uncomfortable, that maybe makes them feel like they've been indicted personally. 425-296-1980 is the number, fam. What do you think? I got 38 people watching. Nobody has a comment? I'm shocked. Let me go back through the chat here. Let's see here. Barr and Trump, yeah. ATL, yep. Morehouse facility, shit. With these motherfuckers trying to hand resources to the HBCUs on behalf of immigrants, we all fucked. Sorry about that, fam. Hey, it's your man, Mark Black. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind? Yep, as soon as we start talking, This shit wants to go sideways. I apologize for that, fam. Yeah, OBS crashed or whatever. Shit is starting to piss me off. I'm actually trying to look for another way to be able to take phone calls because I'm sick of Skype, to be quite honest. So if any of y'all know how I might be able to set up, being able to take phone calls, have a phone queue, if you're familiar with any of that stuff, reach out to me via the Discord and let me know what's going on so I can find and choose another option because I want to be able to provide y'all with solid communication ability in the whole 9 yards. 425-296-1980, fam, is the number. Let me post that back on the screen. Yeah, I'm thinking I might try Zoom, Taj. I've got other methods too. I can even do it via Discord, although it's a pain in the ass. But I'd much rather be able to kind of take calls and have people call in and stuff like that. And Zoom just doesn't quite give me that functionality, you know. But that's an option. That's the one thing I'm actually considering. So I'm going to pop the link to Discord once more in the chat. This is only good for 24 hours. So if you haven't joined up in the next day or so, you won't be able to. And I'm also popping the link again to the actual executive order for you to review. And I want y'all to take a look at this, fam. And I want you to start educating our people. I need y'all, and I need all of us, fam, to start telling our people what's really cracking, right? We know that the Democrats and Biden and them ain't going to say nothing about this shit, right? Because they want to be able to have the power to do the same thing when they get in the office, right? Everybody talks about all this bullshit that Donald Trump is able to do. But what they fail to tell you is that Donald Trump only has this power because of the presidents that came before him, including Barack Obama. What up, Tennessee Slim? I see you, fam. Welcome to the broadcast. Right? Every president stands on the shoulders of his predecessors. So if there's some fuckery that Donald Trump is able to pull, it's probably because another president before him was able to pull the same fuckery and got away with it. So us sitting up here acting like Trump is the worst president ever or whatever the case may be is just bullshit. He's just taking advantage of the already diseased executive that was set up under presidents who were fucking people over years prior. This is, of course, not to excuse Donald Trump, but it's to make clear the truth of the matter. You guys need to tell people about this shit. You need to let people know. Because it's a crock. Google Voice, huh? That's an option. That is definitely an option. As a matter of fact, I think I have a Google Voice number, Taj. I might have to try and set that up and try to figure that out. But I don't have a laptop. I use a desktop to broadcast from. But yeah, the Patriot Act. Yep. And like I said, the Dems are not blameless in this shit. Barack Obama did more shit via executive order than probably any president that came before him. Because after the Democrats lost the House and the Senate, that was the only way he could kind of govern was through executive order. It's another example of it's right when the, half white, half Kenyan do it, but wrong when the orange man do it. It's hypocrisy. If Trump is getting away with murder, it's because the presidents that came before him was able to get away with murder. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, fam. And no calls, but you know what? Sometimes short and sweet is where it is. I just wanted to pass this information on to you, fam. I wanted you to understand just what was happening because nobody is talking about this. Nobody. You heard it here first on Black Outcast Media Broadcasting. Donald Trump has just written an executive order that essentially initiates Thoughtcrime. And ain't nobody saying shit. They talking about the notorious RBG and everybody coming there and she's the first woman ever held in state and this, that, and the third. Forget Rosa Parks and all, right? Everybody's distracted by RBG. Now everybody's talking about this, excuse me, this woman that Trump nominated Let me see here. What's her name? Amy something. Here we go. Amy Coney Barrett. Everybody's freaked out about Amy Coney Barrett. Meanwhile, Trump's steadily slipping shit under the radar on you. He's steadily putting little slick shit out there. And what's worse, fam, is this executive order right here should drive us up the wall. It should make us outraged as black folk. Because didn't he use our history as the veneer to cover up this fuckery? Sound familiar? Didn't the AG down in Kentucky, what's his name, Daniel Cameron, use his black skin as the imprimatur for the fuckery for justice on our sister Breonna? They asked him, well, you know, aren't black people going to be upset at your refusal to try these officers? He's like, well, I'm black and I'm okay with it. Nobody's talking about this shit, fam. But we need to bone up on this stuff. We need to know what's happening. Because then we can be effective in helping to combat it and helping to fight it. So, fam, I want to thank all of you for joining me today. I know this one is short and sweet, but sometimes it just ain't nothing need to be said. This one need to be shared broadly. So make sure you share this broadcast on your social media. Make sure you share this with your friends and family. Have them come watch it. Because I'll lay you 10 to 1. Nobody knows. Again, the link to the PDF, right? The document itself for this executive order is there in the chat. You can download it and read it for yourself. Only about 7 pages, fam. But you need to understand what this shit's about. I should be broadcasting Wednesday, fam. So keep on the lookout for that. Also, if I do participate in any collaborations, of course, I'm going to post that on the community page. And I know that I promised the members a video discussing firearms. That's coming, fam. Sorry, but it's coming. I promise you, it's coming. Thank you for your patience. We're going to be discussing firearms, but not just firearms, but firearms from a more tactical perspective. Because there's some information I need to inform y'all about on firearms. So that video for members only will be coming here shortly, all right? I'm just putting together all the ducks and make sure that I have everything right because I don't want to give you any bad information, okay? So, fam, until next time, as always, I want to wish you all love, peace, prosperity, and power. Real power to our people.